friends who listen to Ebird Online, and here's this week's review of 90 Day Fiance, Season 9, Episode 7. So I'm going to give my usual comedy review, and I have more than just a few wise words for Emily. Yes, that's right, today I'm going to catch up on the antics of Emily and Kobe. So I think it's fair to suggest there aren't too many more ardent feminists than the Ebird. Before I was even aware what the word feminist meant, I was steadfastly refusing to do any housework, whilst simultaneously reminding both of my brothers that they weren't shit. However, as you know, on the internet of late it's been propounded that feminism equals female superiority. Not true. It's actually defined as giving both sexes equal rights and opportunities. And as such, it's my very sad duty to call out Emily this week. For some inexplicable reason, she believes that she made baby Coben all by herself, and therefore she believes she has more rights to baby Coben than father Kobe. In fact, she actually said, "I carried this baby, I pushed him out of my body, and I've looked after him on my own for 17 months. So you need to do as I say." What? Firstly, I think you'll find that 50% of the raw material to make baby Coben came from Kobe, Emily. But that statement's completely wrong in every meaningful way. It's wrong figuratively, legally, morally, you name it, it's wrong. So as you can imagine, I've got quite a bit to say, and I decided to put myself all up in their business for 20 minutes to let them know what's what. But before I do, I want to say a massive thank you to everybody that's subscribed to my channel, and also to everyone who's taken the time out to make the comment section one of the most lit comment sections in 90 Day Fiance. Thank you so much, I really do appreciate it. But if you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing. Just press that big red button and make Ebird a very happy Ebird. And if you enjoy this video, please don't forget to smash the like button and help my algorithm. Right, so without further ado, I give you Emily and Kobe. So guys, I think I've drawn the conclusion that Emily is quite selfish. I think looking at what's happened with this couple over the last few weeks, I've really clearly seen that she doesn't want to take Kobe's wants or needs into account regarding baby Coben. And so I think the very first example of this was on Kobe's very first day. And Emily just, flopped out her tits, as you do, and decided to breast pump in front of the whole of her family. Now, I knew this was going to be a problem from the off, and I was almost laughing when I saw it. It was beyond obvious to me that Kobe may well have a problem with this, and I think not least because she was doing it in front of her dad as well. And he said, what are you doing? Why don't you go to another room to breast pump? And so she wasn't actually feeding the baby, she was just extracting the milk. But of course, talk turned quickly to Coben's age. And of course it was Kobe's contention that he's too old to be breastfed anyway. And so she said, "I've been doing it for the last 17 months, nobody cares, it's what happens in America." And so of course Kobe said, "Well, in Africa women are more discreet and they only breastfeed until about the age of 1. And of course they're not in Africa, so there's that." But what really did make me laugh was her dad was just hovering around, listening to the argument, standing there awkwardly. But how awkwardly? Not that awkwardly as it goes. Not awkwardly enough for him not to put his 2 penneth in. And he said, "Well, regarding breastfeeding, the longer the better, it's good for the baby." But guys, I do wonder to myself, when's the cut-off point? What happens if he still wants to breastfeed when he's 10? And so later on, Kobe was talking to production, and he said something which was, I don't know, quite weird, quite out of order, in a sense quite out of character. And he said, "I don't want to have to share my partner's breasts with my son." And I don't like to make excuses for people, but I like Kobe, so on this occasion I will. I think that he just feels Coben is too old to be breastfed and he'll end up like a mama's boy, and I think that's his main reason. But whatever the reason, it was certainly a very weird thing to say. And so Emily really wasn't happy with all of this from Kobe, and she just snapped, "Just go and cook dinner with my mum." Guys, she spoke to him as if he was a little child. She's invoking the spirit of Bilal. But I really did like the way that Kobe reacted to this. And he more or less put her in a place and said, "Don't chastise me like a child. If you want me to do something, ask nicely and I'm happy to do it." But he was more or less saying to her, "Don't even try it. Don't even think. Because your family are here, I won't pull you up on things." And she said, "Okay, would you like to go and help my mum in the kitchen?" To which Kobe replied, "It would be my pleasure to help your mum in the kitchen." And I've got to admit, it was very, very good boundary setting by Kobe. And so another reason that Emily's selfishness has shone through is the fact that she's unable to really consider Kobe's position within this family and also what he's been through before. Whilst they're all sitting having dinner one evening, Kobe revealed to Emily's family that he didn't grow up with his dad and didn't have a relationship with him at all, and that he grew up in a single parent family. And he told production that his dad didn't provide any sort of role model to him, and he said he thinks it's extremely important that he creates a role model for his son, and also that he makes up for the 17 months that he's lost. But Emily seems to be somewhat strangely resistant to all of this, and she seems to think, oh, Kobe's coming in and we've already got a routine, so he's going to have to fit in around that. And she's not really letting Kobe hold the baby or interact with him. And I think it's very clear she's doing just what's easiest for her. Of course the baby's going to cry initially. There's a strange African man wanting to hold him, wanting to touch him, wanting to interact with him. But come on, he'll get used to it. His mum did. She loved it. Father and son need to be given time to bond and get to know each other better. So guys, Kobe's isolation was set to continue. On their very first night at home, Kobe was saying, I'm just so happy I get to spend the first night with my son. And all three of them went to bed and they all lay down together. And obviously, baby Coben's just used to having him and his mum. And so he was in between both of them. And Coben was kind of laughing and giggling and wriggling around. And after about, 20 seconds of him not going to sleep, as he should do, Emily decided this isn't going to work, and she said Coben's being distracted, he's really confused and he's not following his nighttime routine. For God's sake, Emily, it's day one. For the first few nights he probably will be a bit discombobulated. After that I'm sure he's going to get used to it. If he doesn't, there's nothing stopping you from putting him in a little cot next to the bed maybe at some point. But I do admit it's not a good idea to do that immediately, otherwise Coben may feel he's been replaced by Kobe. But Kobe went to rest his hand on Coben, and Emily slapped, leave him alone. And guys, this is the second time she's done it now. Earlier that day, when Kobe first met his son, he reached out to touch his leg or his foot, and Emily slapped his hand away and said, don't touch him. So this is the second or even third time, I don't recall, in a day that she's done that. But there's worse to come. Emily said, this is not going to work. You've got to go and sleep in the spare room. And poor Kobe looked absolutely devastated. Guys, to me this was unforgivable. His first night, he was forced to service Emily's rather substantial needs. And his second night, he was banished to the spare room. So the very next day, Kobe's talking to production, and of course he's in his feelings. He said Emily didn't take into consideration my feelings. But Emily tells production, it's Coben's home, and I want him to feel comfortable, so first I want to accommodate him before anybody else. Really, Emily, I think somewhere in amongst all of that care, which I'm sure is there, there's a little bit of ownership. I don't think that you want to lose out on your relationship to Kobe. And so Emily, in a rare delegation of power, said to Kobe, you can help Coben brush his teeth if you like. And so father and son brushed their teeth together. And when they'd finished, Kobe scooped Coben up and walked out into the living room. And Coben started crying. And again, Emily snapped and said, just put him down. He wants to walk. Give me strength. Kobe can't be expected to know everything. And I think for once Emily realised she'd kind of gone over the top there, because she deviated into telling lies and half-truths. And she said, I've had 17 months to figure out how to be a parent, and I just feel like I have it down. I've been doing it all by myself, it's just Coben and I. Oh dear Emily, I don't know how to tell you this, but there are ghosts in your house. One looks just like your dad, the other just like your mum, and one looks exactly the same as your sister. These friendly ghosts have been helping out for the last 17 months, helping you co-parent your son, Coben. Please don't say you've done it all yourself, you really haven't. I'm not disputing for a second that you're a great mum, and it seems that Coben's really happy and well adjusted. But please, don't piss on people and tell them it's raining. And so she lets Kobe change Coben's nappy. And guys, she stood over him, hands on hips, watching. And then she went, stop, wait. And he looked up and said, what? And she went, you haven't got the wipes. And he went, they're just behind me. She said, no, you have to get everything right there when you're doing it. Everything's got to be right there before you start. Oh, good Lord. Guys, the control freakery is leaving me breathless. It really is. He's changing a freaking nappy, not explaining the Higgs boson particle. Guys, I just can't with Emily sometimes. I really can't. And so finally, the first day of Kobe looking after his son is here. And it must have been quite difficult for Emily, I have to admit, because Kobe was holding his son as Emily left, and he was crying his little eyes out, and she just had to kind of, I don't know, just disappear. And I'm pretty certain that he knew, where's my mum gone? Why has she left me with this weird guy? And he cried and cried like crazy. Even Granny said, it's painful, because I know I could stop his crying immediately, but they have to develop their relationship. Although I've got to admit, she did keep meddling all day. She did try hard to leave father and son to bond. And so to stop Coben's crying, Kobe was talking to him, laughing with him, holding him, walking around the apartment, and it was really nice seeing the two bond. And eventually Coben stopped crying. And they sat and ate lunch and seemed to be getting on very well. But then, don't you know it, Kobe has to go and mess it all up. He decided, in his infinite wisdom, to see if baby Coben likes peanuts. He of course was just about to do it as Emily walked in, and she wasn't at all happy. And she pointed out that it was a choking hazard. So firstly there's that, it's very dangerous. But also he said, I want to give him some of my food, from my country. Oh Kobe, peanuts are worldwide. I'm not sure where you got the idea that this was specialist food. Thinking about it, perhaps baby Coben would like something specifically from Jamaica. We call it water. You can only get it here. Oh dear. Kobe thinks he's getting a little bit of his culture. He's not. He's getting what he's going to be eating every single night at the local bar, for free, off the bar, from the age of about 19 onwards. Mind you, I suppose Kobe's peanuts are minus the urine. But guys, when Emily said to him you can't give it to him, it's a choking hazard, he said in Cameroon, babies can eat peanuts. Oh God, I didn't want to have to go here, I didn't want to have to do this, but you forced me, Kobe, you forced me. Look at the child mortality rate in Cameroon, it's 72.2. That means out of every 1,000 babies born, 72 die. Look at it in the United States, it's 6.3. That means only 6 babies out of every 1,000 die. Part of that reason is because there are rules and regulations on what they can and can't eat. So Emily was massively unimpressed. And in the final scene she told production, I won't let Kobe chime in until he proves himself. And that's where we end things for this week. So what does the Ebird make from all of this? Well, until the very last peanut scene, I was completely and totally Team Kobe. But this slip up from him rammed it home how important it is to watch over somebody if they're not used to having kids. Now he may be used to babies or young children, but there's nothing like having your own to really fettle your skills. So I do think Kobe should ask for a little more help at certain points. I think because Emily's kept him so distant from Coben thus far, that the moment he gets Coben in his hands, he wants to do his own thing. I noticed earlier, Granny gave some milk to try and calm baby Coben down. And Kobe just wanted to soothe him, rather than give him the milk. And I think if Emily let him have more contact, he wouldn't feel so resistant to other people poking their nose in on the few moments he does have contact. Also, from these first couple of days, it's become quite clear that there are going to be some cultural differences. Some things really don't matter. You know, the whole breastfeeding thing. I'm sure he'll get over that. But things like the peanuts need really to be considered. Because it's not a case of, oh, we have different ways of doing things. It's more of a case of, oh, that's actually unsafe. And in about 5 years' time, people in Cameroon will know it's unsafe too. And what else do I think? Emily's behaviour is somewhat brat-like. She's not really prepared to share the baby with Kobe. She's obviously worked out a schedule for herself, and she doesn't want anyone to interrupt that. She had to have known that when he came, he would want lots of contact, and he would also want some say in how the child's parented. And what I think Emily should do is, nod politely, take it on board, mull it over, and if it's one of his horseshit peanut ideas, let him know why that's not happening. But I tend to find that whatever he says he wants to do, whether it's just touch the baby or hold him at certain points, Emily snaps at him and says, don't do that, and there's no real reason why he shouldn't be doing that. And Coben's only crying because someone who is unfamiliar with is in his space. They have to be given the opportunity to get used to each other. And then finally, I find that Emily's somewhat throwing her weight around a bit, no pun intended, because she's with her family. So I think when she tried to dismiss Kobe by saying, go and help my mum in the kitchen, it was kind of a power play, and I think it was both rude and disrespectful. But like I said earlier, I really like the way that Kobe handled that, because he told her in no uncertain terms, this isn't going to fly. Overall, I suppose I've got to say, it's very, very early days, but I'd like to see Emily loosen up a bit, and I'd also like to make sure that Kobe asks a few more questions before he decides to, I don't know, feed Coben something, or do anything massively different to what they currently do. And the final thing I'd like to see happen is Emily needs to stop saying, this is my child, my son, my this, my that. It's both of your child. It's 50-50. I know you've had primary care thus far, but that was not Kobe's fault. He's desperate to be the very best dad that he can be, and you should welcome that. Does he need guidance? Yes, he does. But does he need scolding like a naughty child? Of course not. Emily, I hope to see better in the weeks to come. Guys, let me know what you think in comments down below. Do you think Emily's OTT? Or do you think that Kobe is a walking, talking liability? Please put your comments down below, and I'll get on with my next video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please don't hesitate to do so, and make Ebird a very happy Ebird. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I bid you good day.